Tonight we'll be exploring the gentle world of plants, a realm filled with life, with wonder, and endless mysteries. Around us are the usual sights: the trees, the flowers, and the grasses we're all familiar with. But there is so much more than meets the eye. Some of the plants we see have roots deeper than buildings, are tall. A simple leaf may contain more complexity than the finest machine, and the quiet growth of a seed may be something that transforms entire landscapes. The world of plants is both ordinary and spectacular. Something we see every day yet never ceases to amaze. If you enjoy these quiet explorations, I invite you to like and subscribe or share a simple thought down in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is rest, settle in, and allow the calm of the botanical world to carry you. Let's begin. Every breath you take is a gift from plants. When you inhale deeply, drawing oxygen into your lungs, you're experiencing one of nature's most beautiful exchanges. Plants created that oxygen. Through the quiet miracle of photosynthesis, they take in carbon dioxide that we exhale and transform it into the oxygen we need to survive. Green leaves, scattered across the planet, work tirelessly, day after day, converting sunlight into the very air we breathe. Without plants, our atmosphere would be unbreathable, devoid of the oxygen that sustains all animal life. Trees in forests, algae in oceans, tiny moss on rocks, all of them contribute to this invisible gift. Ancient plants, millions of years ago, first filled Earth's atmosphere with oxygen, making it possible for complex life to evolve. Every time you take a breath, you're part of this ancient cycle, connected to every leaf and blade of grass through the simple act of breathing. Plants have been on Earth far longer than humans. Long before the first human walked upright, plants had already conquered the land. They emerged from ancient waters roughly 470 million years ago, slowly adapting to life on dry ground. Early plants were simple, lacking flowers or even leaves as we know them. But they persisted, spreading across barren rock, breaking it down into soil, creating the foundation for all terrestrial life to follow. By the time dinosaurs roamed Earth, plants had already established vast forests, some with trees taller than any building we've constructed. Ferns unfurled their delicate fronds in steamy swamps. Conifers stretched toward prehistoric skies. When the dinosaurs vanished, plants endured. They witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, the shifting of continents, the freezing and thawing of ice ages. To walk among plants today is to walk among ancient survivors, living monuments to resilience and adaptation. The oldest living tree has witnessed over 5,000 years of history. In the White Mountains of California grows a bristlecone pine named Methuselah. Its exact location is kept secret to protect it, but scientists know it has been alive for over 4,800 years. That means this single tree was already ancient when the pyramids were built. It was a sapling when woolly mammoths still walked the earth. Throughout its long life, it has weathered countless storms, droughts, and harsh winters, slowly adding ring after ring to its trunk. Each ring tells a story of that year's climate, a living record of Earth's history. Methuselah is not alone. Other bristlecone pines in the same range are nearly as old, twisted and gnarled by time, their wood so dense and resinous that decay cannot touch them. To stand near such a tree is to stand in the presence of deep time itself, a witness that has outlived empires and will likely outlive us all. Some trees are even older when their root systems are considered. While Methuselah impresses with its individual longevity, other organisms challenge our understanding of what it means to be a single living thing. In Utah, a colony of quaking aspen called Pando shares a single root system. Above ground, it appears as a forest of 47,000 individual trees, but beneath the soil, they are all connected, all part of one organism. Scientists estimate this root system could be 80,000 years old, making it one of the oldest living things on Earth. Pando has survived by sending up new shoots, even as older trunks die and fall. It has witnessed the entire span of human civilization, the end of the last ice age, and transformations in climate that reshaped continents. To walk through Pando is to walk through a single ancient being, vast and patient, surviving not through individual strength but through connection and renewal. Trees communicate with each other through underground networks. Beneath the forest floor lies a hidden world of connection. Tree roots intertwine with fungal threads called mycorrhizae, forming vast networks that scientists call the wood wide web. Through these networks, trees can share nutrients, sending carbon to neighbors in need. A mother tree with deep roots and abundant sunlight can support her offspring growing in shade, transferring sugars through fungal connections. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can send chemical warnings through the network, alerting nearby trees to boost their defenses. These underground connections create communities, forests that function not as collections of individuals, but as interconnected superorganisms. Douglas firs connect with paper birches, oaks link with maples. The oldest, largest trees serve as hubs, connected to hundreds of others, nurturing the young and supporting the weak. The quiet forest is not silent at all, but humming with chemical conversations we're only beginning to understand. Plants can recognize their relatives. In what seems almost impossible, plants can distinguish between their own kin and strangers. Studies have shown that when plants grow near their siblings, they compete less aggressively for resources. They develop smaller root systems, sharing space more equitably. But when surrounded by unrelated plants, they grow more competitive roots, fighting for every bit of soil and water. How they accomplish this recognition remains mysterious. Some scientists believe they detect chemical signatures in root exudates, the compounds roots release into soil. Others suggest they recognize patterns of reflected light unique to their genetic relatives. Whatever the mechanism, it reveals that plants possess a form of awareness we're only beginning to comprehend. They are not passive organisms, simply responding to light and water. They are active participants in their environment, capable of discrimination, memory, and something that resembles social behavior. A single teaspoon of soil contains more organisms than people on Earth. When you hold a handful of rich garden soil, you're cradling an entire universe. That small amount contains billions of bacteria, tens of thousands of protozoa, several thousand nematodes, countless fungi, and arthropods too numerous to count. These organisms form the foundation of plant life, breaking down organic matter into nutrients plants can absorb, protecting roots from disease, creating the soil structure that allows roots to breathe and water to flow. Without this microscopic community, plants could not exist. The relationship between plants and soil life is so intertwined that neither can thrive without the other. Plants feed the soil organisms with sugars from their roots, and in return, the organisms provide nutrients, protection, and support. This partnership has existed for hundreds of millions of years, evolving together, creating the rich tapestry of life we see covering the land. Every garden, every forest, every meadow rests upon this invisible foundation. Roots can sense gravity and grow downward even in darkness. When a seed germinates in complete darkness, its root always knows which way to grow, down. This simple fact conceals remarkable sophistication. Inside root tip cells, tiny starch-filled organelles, called statoliths, settle to the bottom of the cell, pulled by gravity. The root senses this settling and responds by growing in that direction, ensuring it will find soil and water rather than growing uselessly upward into air. This gravity sensing, called gravitropism, guides every root system on Earth. Even if you turn a potted plant on its side, within hours its roots will curve downward again, reorienting themselves. Simultaneously, the stem senses gravity too, but responds oppositely, growing upward toward light. This dual system allows plants to properly orient themselves, regardless of how their seeds land. In the darkness of soil, without any visual cues, roots navigate perfectly, drawn by forces we barely notice, but that plants have learned to read with precision. The tallest tree on Earth is taller than the Statue of Liberty. Deep in a protected grove in Northern California stands Hyperion, a coast redwood that reaches 380 feet into the sky. From base to crown, it towers higher than a 30-story building, taller than the Statue of Liberty from ground to torch. Standing at its base and looking up, the top disappears into the canopy, lost in green and sky. Hyperion is not alone in its magnificence. The redwood forests harbor dozens of trees over 350 feet tall, cathedrals of bark and branches that have stood for centuries. These giants can live over 2,000 years, growing in the mild coastal climate of California, where fog provides moisture and mild winters allow year-round growth. Their bark, thick and fire-resistant, protects them from the flames that periodically sweep through. Their wood, resistant to rot, allows them to stand for millennia. To walk among such trees is to feel small in the best way, humbled by the quiet power of life that can build living structures rivaling our greatest monuments. Some trees have roots that grow upward instead of down. Not all roots burrow into soil. In swampy, waterlogged environments where oxygen is scarce, some trees have evolved an unusual solution. Mangrove trees send up special roots called pneumatophores that stick up above the water like wooden fingers, breathing on behalf of the submerged root system. These structures are covered with tiny pores called lenticels that allow gas exchange, pulling oxygen from the air down to the oxygen-starved roots below. In cypress swamps, bald cypress trees create similar structures called cypress knees, wooden knobs that rise from the water around the trunk. The exact function is still debated, but they likely help with gas exchange and provide structural support in the soft swamp mud. These upward-growing roots transform the appearance of wetlands, creating forests that seem to stand on stilts, adapted perfectly to life between water and land. Bamboo can grow 3 feet in a single day. Of all plants, bamboo holds the record for the fastest growth. Some species, particularly Moso bamboo, can add 3 feet to their height in just 24 hours. If you were patient enough, you could almost watch it grow, the shoots visibly extending hour by hour. This explosive growth is possible because bamboo shoots emerge, already containing all the cells they'll ever have, stacked like a collapsible telescope. As the shoot grows, these cells simply elongate, inflating with water, stretching the stem skyward at remarkable speed. Within weeks, a bamboo shoot can reach its full height of over 100 feet, then spend the rest of its life strengthening and hardening its walls. This rapid growth makes bamboo one of the most sustainable building materials on Earth. A bamboo grove can be harvested annually without killing the plants, the roots sending up new shoots each spring in an endless cycle of renewal. The Amazon rainforest produces 20% of Earth's oxygen. The vast green expanse of the Amazon rainforest, stretches across 9 countries, covering over 2 million square miles. Within this emerald realm, billions of trees photosynthesize constantly, drawing in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen in such quantities that they supply roughly 1/5 of all the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. But the Amazon does more than produce oxygen. It also stores vast amounts of carbon in its trees and soil, helping regulate global climate. It generates its own weather, releasing so much water vapor through transpiration that it creates clouds and rainfall. The forest recycles its own rain, moisture rising from leaves, only to fall again days later, hundreds of miles away. This makes the Amazon a massive engine of climate regulation, cooling the planet, storing carbon, and maintaining weather patterns across South America and beyond. When we protect such forests, we protect the very systems that make Earth habitable. Plants can count and have memory. In what seems like science fiction, research has revealed that plants can count and remember. The Venus flytrap demonstrates this most dramatically. When an insect touches a trigger hair inside the trap, nothing happens. But if a second touch occurs within about 20 seconds, the trap snaps shut. The plant has counted to 2. This prevents the trap from wasting energy on false alarms like falling debris. But the sophistication goes deeper. After closing, the trap counts again. If the struggling insect touches the hairs 5 more times, the plant begins producing digestive enzymes. Fewer touches, and it assumes the capture was a false alarm and reopens. Other plants show memory too. Mimosa pudica, the sensitive plant, learns to stop responding to repeated harmless stimuli, essentially becoming habituated. Plants exposed to drought stress remember the experience, responding more quickly when drought returns. They can remember winter, requiring a period of cold before flowering in spring. Memory without a brain, counting without neurons. Plants accomplish feats that force us to reconsider what it means to be intelligent. Some flowers bloom only once every 100 years. The century plant, despite its name, typically blooms after 20 to 30 years. But the principle is the same. These plants, called monocarpic, spend decades storing energy, building resources, and then flower once in a spectacular display before dying. The bloom stalk of an agave can shoot up 30 feet in a matter of weeks, covered in thousands of flowers that attract bats and bees from miles around. After this singular reproductive burst, the plant dies, having invested everything into this one chance at offspring. Some bamboo species take this even further, synchronizing their blooming across entire forests. All the bamboo of a particular species, even those separated by oceans, will bloom simultaneously after 60, 80, or even 120 years, then die together. This mass flowering overwhelms seed predators with sheer abundance, ensuring some seeds survive. To witness such an event is to see the culmination of a century of patient growth, a reminder that plants measure time differently than we do. The corpse flower can grow 10 feet tall and smells like rotting flesh. In the rainforests of Sumatra grows one of the world's most bizarre plants. Amorphophallus titanum, the corpse flower, produces the largest unbranched inflorescence on Earth. After years of gathering energy, it sends up a single enormous structure that can reach 10 feet tall, looking like a massive maroon petal wrapped around a central spike. When it blooms, which happens rarely and unpredictably, it releases a smell of decomposing animals, a stench so powerful it can be detected from hundreds of feet away. This awful odor serves a purpose, attracting carrion beetles and flies that typically lay eggs on dead animals. The insects, fooled by the smell, crawl into the flower, pollinating it while searching for the non-existent carcass. The bloom lasts only a day or two before collapsing, and the plant may not flower again for years. Despite its repulsive smell, the corpse flower draws crowds whenever it blooms in botanical gardens. People lining up to witness and smell this rare and outrageous spectacle. Many flowers heat themselves to attract pollinators. Some plants don't passively wait for pollinators but actively attract them with warmth. Skunk cabbages, which bloom in early spring, generate so much heat they can melt through snow, their flowers poking through the frozen ground in defiance of winter. This heat, produced through a process similar to how our bodies generate warmth, can raise the flower's temperature 20 degrees above air temperature. The warmth volatilizes scent compounds, spreading the flower's smell farther, and creates a cozy space that attracts cold beetles and flies. The sacred lotus also produces heat, maintaining its flowers at a steady temperature that helps vaporize fragrances and rewards visiting beetles with a warm refuge. Some philodendrons grow so warm to the touch that if you place your hand near the flower, you can feel the heat radiating from it. These plants are not cold, passive organisms, but active participants in their environment, manipulating temperature as precisely as any warm-blooded animal. Flowers can change color to signal pollinators. When you look at a patch of flowers, you might notice that some blooms are brighter or more vibrant than others. Often, this color change is intentional communication. Many flowers change color after pollination, signaling to bees and other visitors that they've already been serviced and contain no more nectar. Lupines, for example, start with bright purple petals that fade to blue after pollination. Horse chestnuts display yellow spots on their flowers that turn red after pollination, creating a clear stop signal for bees. Some orchids change from white to pink, and certain forget-me-nots shift from pink buds to blue flowers. This system benefits both plant and pollinator. The plant ensures pollinators visit unpollinated flowers where pollen transfer is still possible, and pollinators save energy by avoiding depleted flowers. It's a conversation in color, a language of petals that optimizes reproduction for both parties. Some plants only bloom at night. As the sun sets and most flowers close their petals for the evening, another group awakens. Night-blooming plants open their flowers in darkness, releasing intense fragrances and displaying pale petals that glow in moonlight. The moonflower, a relative of the morning glory, unfurls its large white blooms at dusk, each flower lasting only one night. Night-blooming jasmine releases an intoxicating perfume so powerful it scents entire gardens. The queen of the night cactus blooms for just one night per year, its enormous white flower opening for mere hours before wilting with the dawn. These plants are pollinated by nocturnal visitors, moths, bats, and night-flying beetles that navigate by scent and are attracted to pale colors visible in dim light. To sit in a garden at twilight and watch these flowers open is to witness a secret world, a nighttime ecosystem that thrives while we sleep. The largest living organism on Earth is a fungus, but it couldn't exist without plants. In Oregon's Blue Mountains, a honey mushroom fungus stretches across 2,385 acres, making it the largest known living organism on Earth. This vast network exists mostly underground, spreading through soil as thread-like hyphae. While technically a fungus, not a plant, its existence is intimately tied to the forest above. It feeds on dead and dying trees, breaking down wood and recycling nutrients back into the ecosystem. The relationship between fungi and plants is one of Earth's most important partnerships. Most plants rely on mycorrhizal fungi to extend their root systems, the fungal networks increasing the plant's access to water nutrients by orders of magnitude. In return, plants provide fungi with sugars from photosynthesis. Neither could thrive without the other. The forest floor is not a collection of separate organisms, but a woven network of plant and fungal life, interdependent and inseparable. Orchids trick insects into pollinating them. Orchids are masters of deception. Many species have evolved flowers that mimic female insects so convincingly that males attempt to mate with them. The bee orchid, for example, produces a flower shaped and scented like a female bee. When a male bee lands and tries to copulate, the flower deposits pollen on his back. Frustrated, he flies to another flower and repeats the attempt, inadvertently transferring pollen. Some bucket orchids go even further, creating elaborate traps. Bees attracted by scent land on slippery surfaces and fall into a bucket of liquid. The only escape route forces them through a narrow passage that coats them with pollen. Other orchids mimic alarm, pheromones, causing wasps to attack the flowers, getting dusted with pollen in their fury. Still others emit the scent of rotting meat, attracting flies that land and search for a place to lay eggs that will never hatch. These deceptions are so sophisticated that many orchids can only be pollinated by a single species of insect, locked in an evolutionary dance, millions of years in the making. Some plants eat animals. In nutrient-poor environments, some plants have turned the tables on the animal kingdom. The Venus flytrap, perhaps the most famous carnivorous plant, snaps shut on insects with leaves modified into deadly traps. The pitcher plant drowns its prey in a vase of digestive fluid. Sundews trap insects with sticky tentacles that curl around struggling victims like slowly closing fingers. Bladderworts, aquatic carnivores, use tiny vacuum chambers to suck in microscopic prey faster than the eye can see. These plants didn't evolve carnivory out of bloodthirstiness, but necessity. In boggy, acidic soils where nutrients are scarce, catching insects provides essential nitrogen and phosphorus. The plants still photosynthesize, still draw energy from the sun, but supplement their diet with animal protein. They blur the lines between plant and predator, demonstrating that in nature's endless creativity, even the most fundamental categories can overlap in unexpected ways. The lotus flower stays remarkably clean despite growing in mud. The lotus flower has inspired art and philosophy for millennia, partly because of its remarkable ability to remain pristine while growing from muddy pond bottoms. This phenomenon, called the lotus effect, occurs because the leaves and petals are covered with microscopic bumps coated in a waxy substance. Water droplets on such surfaces don't spread out but form perfect beads that roll off, carrying dirt and debris with them. The plant essentially self-cleans with every rain or splash. Scientists have studied this effect extensively, using it as inspiration for self-cleaning paints, fabrics, and surfaces. The lotus demonstrates how nature solves problems elegantly, without chemicals or energy input, simply through intelligent design at the microscopic level. To see water beading on a lotus leaf, each droplet a perfect sphere, is to witness nanotechnology that puts our best engineering to shame, perfected by evolution over millions of years. Sunflowers track the sun across the sky. Young sunflower plants demonstrate one of nature's most charming behaviors. During the day, their faces turn to follow the sun from east to west, a movement called heliotropism. This isn't passive following, but active growth. The stem's eastern side grows more during the day, pushing the flower west, while at night, the western side grows, returning the flower to face east by dawn. This tracking warms the flower, attracting more pollinators and optimizing photosynthesis. Remarkably, as the sunflower matures and stops growing, it ceases this movement and locks facing east. Studies show this final eastward orientation benefits the plant. The morning sun warms the flowers earlier, attracting 5 times more pollinating bees than west-facing flowers. Even in stillness, the sunflower maintains its orientation toward the dawn, a permanent greeting to the rising sun. To stand in a field of sunflowers, all facing the same direction, is to see plant behavior at its most obvious and delightful. Some trees grow in near total darkness. In the deepest parts of old-growth forests, the canopy blocks so much light that the forest floor receives less than 1% of the sunlight that hits the treetops. Yet seedlings and shrubs survive here, adapted to grow in near darkness. They produce larger leaves to capture every available photon, and their photosynthetic machinery is highly efficient, extracting maximum energy from minimal light. Some plants enter a state of suspended animation, barely growing, waiting years or even decades for a gap to open in the canopy when an old tree falls. When that moment comes, the waiting seedling surges upward, racing to fill the gap before competitors arrive. This patience is remarkable. A young tree might spend 50 years as a tiny sapling, growing only inches, conserving energy, waiting for its chance. When the light finally comes, it can add feet of growth in a single season. In the darkness beneath the canopy, time moves differently, measured not in seasons, but in the lifespans of giants. Some plants survive in complete darkness by stealing from others. Not all plants photosynthesize. Some have abandoned the process entirely, becoming parasites that steal from other plants. The ghost pipe, a pale, translucent plant of dark forest floors, has no chlorophyll and cannot make its own food. Instead, it taps into the mycorrhizal networks that connect trees, stealing sugars the trees produced. Indian pipe does the same, its white, waxy stems rising from the forest floor, like ghostly fingers. These plants can grow in total darkness because they don't need light, only access to the underground network. Other parasites attach directly to host plants. Dodder, a stringy orange plant, wraps around its victims and pushes specialized roots through their stems, sucking out nutrients. It has almost no leaves and barely any roots of its own. Some mistletoes are partial parasites, photosynthesizing, but also stealing water and nutrients from host trees. These plants remind us that not all green things are innocent, and even in the plant kingdom, thieves and cheats have found their niches. Redwood trees can grow new trunks from their roots. Coast redwoods possess a remarkable ability. When the main trunk dies or is cut down, the tree doesn't die. Instead, the root system sends up a circle of new trunks around the perimeter of the old one. These sprouts, called fairy rings, can grow into full-sized trees themselves, all sharing the same root system as the tree original. This means a redwood can, in a sense, be immortal. Individual trunks may fall, but the organism persists, regenerating again and again. Some fairy rings contain trees that are themselves hundreds of years old, all surrounding a space where the mother tree once stood thousands of years ago. The roots beneath, ancient beyond measure, continue feeding new generations. This resilience allowed redwoods to survive logging that removed 95% of the original forests. The trees that remain today are often regenerations from old-growth stumps, carrying forward genetic lineages that stretch back to the age of dinosaurs. A single oak tree can support thousands of species. An oak tree is not a single organism, but an ecosystem. A mature oak provides habitat and food for thousands of species of insects, birds, mammals, fungi, lichens, and other plants. Its bark hosts lichens and mosses. Its branches hold bird nests and squirrel drays. Its leaves feed hundreds of species of caterpillars, which in turn feed birds raising their young. Its flowers provide pollen for bees. Its acorns feed deer, bears, jays, squirrels, and countless other animals. Fungi sprout from its roots and dead branches. Beetles bore through its bark. Bats roost in its cavities. A single oak has been documented supporting over 2,300 species in Britain alone. When an old oak falls, it continues supporting life, its rotting wood, housing insects, salamanders, and fungi for decades as it slowly returns to soil. To save an oak is to save an entire world, a community of organisms that depend on this single species for their survival. Trees in a forest rarely touch each other. If you stand in a dense forest and look up, you might notice something strange. The tree crowns don't touch. Between the branches of neighboring trees is a gap, a space of sky visible from below. This phenomenon, called crown shyness, occurs in many species and forests worldwide. The trees somehow sense their neighbors and stop growing when their branches get too close. How they accomplish this isn't fully understood. Some scientists believe branches that do touch are damaged by wind-caused abrasion, prompting the tree to stop growing in that direction. Others suggest trees detect light reflected from neighboring leaves and avoid shading. Whatever the cause, the effect is beautiful. Looking up through crown-shy trees creates a pattern, like puzzle pieces or a stained glass window. Each tree's canopy distinct, separated by channels of light. It's as though the forest has negotiated peace treaties, each tree respecting its neighbor's space. Some seeds can wait centuries before sprouting. Seeds are time capsules, packages of potential that can wait extraordinary lengths of time for the right conditions. Lotus seeds from a dry lake bed in China germinated after 1,300 years of dormancy. Date palm seeds from Masada, sealed in a clay jar for 2,000 years, sprouted when planted by researchers. The oldest confirmed germination comes from seeds of a lupine found in frozen Yukon permafrost, dated to 10,000 years old. These seeds waited through the entirety of human civilization, patient beyond comprehension. Their secret is a combination of hard seed coats that prevent water entry, low metabolic rates that prevent aging, and repair mechanisms that fix accumulated damage. In seed banks worldwide, scientists store millions of seeds at low temperatures, preserving genetic diversity against future catastrophe. These collections are humanity's backup drive, repositories of botanical knowledge and potential that could rebuild ecosystems or feed future generations. Dandelions are more sophisticated than they appear. Most people dismiss dandelions as weeds, but these common plants are marvels of adaptation. Each dandelion flower is actually a composite of hundreds of tiny flowers, each capable of producing a seed. When the flower closes after blooming, it doesn't rest. Inside the closed head, each seed develops its own parachute, a perfectly engineered structure of about 100 bristles arranged in a circle. When the seed head reopens as a white puffball, each seed is ready for flight. Studies show these parachutes are more efficient than any human-made parachute, creating a stable vortex ring that keeps the seed aloft. A single dandelion plant can produce 5,000 seeds in a season, each capable of traveling miles on the wind. The plant's taproot can extend 6 feet deep, reaching water other plants can't access and making it nearly impossible to remove by pulling. Every part of the plant is edible and medicinal, used by humans for thousands of years. The dandelion is not a weed, but a perfectly designed survivor. Trees can warn each other of insect attacks. When an insect begins eating a tree's leaves, the tree doesn't just sit there and take it. It fights back. producing bitter or toxic chemicals that make its leaves less palatable. But remarkably, it also warns its neighbors. The damaged tree releases volatile organic compounds into the air, chemical signals that drift on the breeze to nearby trees. When these neighboring trees detect the signal, they begin producing defensive chemicals, even though they haven't been attacked yet. This early warning system allows entire groves to prepare for an insect outbreak, making it harder for the pests to find edible leaves. Some scientists believe the trees are intentionally communicating, while others think neighboring trees are simply eavesdropping on chemical distress signals. Either way, the effect is the same. A forest under attack coordinates its defense in ways we're only beginning to understand, proving once again that plants are far more sophisticated than their stillness suggests. Sequoia trees can live over 3,000 years. The giant sequoias of California's Sierra Nevada are among Earth's longest-lived organisms. These massive trees, some reaching 275 feet tall and 30 feet in diameter, can live for more than 3,000 years. The oldest known sequoia was 3,266 years old when it was cut down in the 1,890 seconds, making it a living link to ancient civilizations. These trees were saplings when the Egyptian pharaohs ruled, mature when Rome rose and fell, and ancient when Columbus sailed. Their longevity comes from multiple adaptations. Their thick bark, up to 2 feet deep, resists fire, insects, and disease. Their wood contains no resin or pitch, making it unpalatable to insects and resistant to rot. They grow in groves, protected from extreme weather. Unlike many trees that weaken with age, sequoias seem to grow stronger, their wood actually getting denser over centuries. To stand among sequoias is to stand in the presence of living history, witnesses to the entire span of human civilization. The smell of fresh-cut grass is actually a distress signal. That pleasant green smell when you mow the lawn is not the peaceful scent it seems. When grass is cut, it releases chemicals, called greenleaf volatiles, distress signals that warn nearby plants of danger. The smell we enjoy is essentially a scream, a chemical cry of injury. Other plants respond to these signals by boosting their own defenses. The scent also attracts predators and parasites of herbivores, calling in reinforcements against whatever is eating the plant. Some of these compounds can even trigger genes in nearby plants to prepare for attack. This communication happens constantly in nature, invisible to us but critical to plant survival. When insects chew leaves, when hooves trample stems, when diseases infect tissue, plants respond with chemical signals that ripple through the plant community. What we perceive as pleasant garden smells are actually urgent messages in a language we can detect but cannot speak, a conversation between plants that has continued for millions of years. Leaves change color because they stop producing chlorophyll. The brilliant reds, oranges, and yellows of autumn. Leaves are not new colors, but colors that were hidden all along. Throughout spring and summer, leaves are green because they're packed with chlorophyll, the molecule that captures sunlight for photosynthesis. But chlorophyll is expensive to maintain and breaks down constantly, requiring the tree to rebuild it. As days shorten and temperatures drop, deciduous trees prepare for winter by withdrawing nutrients from their leaves and sealing them off. Without new chlorophyll being produced, the green fades, revealing other pigments that were always present. Carotenoids provide yellow and orange hues, the same compounds that color carrots and corn. Some trees also produce anthocyanins as leaves die, creating reds and purples. These pigments may protect leaves during their final days, allowing the tree to reclaim as many nutrients as possible before the leaves fall. The autumn display is not the tree dressing up, but undressing, revealing its true colors as the green cloak of summer falls away. Some plants explode to spread their seeds. Not all plants rely on wind or animals to spread seeds. Some take matters violently into their own hands. The sandbox tree, native to tropical Americas, produces pumpkin-shaped seed capsules that dry in the sun. As they dry, tension builds until the capsule explodes with a sound like a gunshot, flinging seeds up to 150 feet away at speeds reaching 150 miles per hour. The plant is also called the dynamite tree because of these explosive dehiscences. Touch-me-nots and jewelweed have spring-loaded seed pods that burst when touched, showering seeds in all directions. Squirting cucumbers build up hydraulic pressure until their fruits detach and shoot backward like rockets, spraying seeds and slime. Witch hazel waits until winter to explosively launch seeds from dried capsules. These violent dispersal methods ensure seeds travel farther from the parent plant, reducing competition and increasing colonization of new territory. To witness a plant explode is to see botanical engineering at its most dramatic. The scent of roses serves a specific purpose. The intoxicating fragrance of a rose is not mere beauty, but advertisement. Roses produce complex scent compounds that attract pollinators from considerable distances. Each scent molecule evaporates at different rates, creating a fragrance that changes throughout the day as different compounds dominate. Some molecules attract specific pollinators. Certain beetles prefer particular rose scents, while bees are drawn to others. The rose doesn't waste energy producing scent at night when pollinators are absent. Instead, it releases most fragrance during the warmest part of the day when pollinators are most active and when heat volatilizes the scent molecules most effectively. Interestingly, modern rose breeding has sometimes sacrificed scent for color, bloom size, or disease resistance, creating beautiful but scentless flowers. This reminds us that every trait has a cost and a purpose. The rose's perfume is not decoration, but function, a chemical beacon that has attracted insects for millions of years and humans for thousands, bridging the gap between utility and art. Some plants can move surprisingly fast. While plants are generally thought of as stationary, some move with startling speed. The Venus flytrap snaps shut in 1/10 of a second, making it one of the fastest movements in the plant kingdom. The water wheel plant, an aquatic carnivore, closes even faster, in just 20 milliseconds. The sensitive plant, Mimosa pudica, folds its leaves within seconds of being touched, a defensive response to potential herbivores. Bladderworts suck in prey in less than a millisecond, creating a vacuum so quickly that high-speed cameras can barely capture it. These movements require sophisticated mechanisms. The Venus flytrap uses changes in cell turgor pressure, rapidly moving water between cells to create the snapping motion. Other plants use similar hydraulic mechanisms or rapidly release stored elastic energy. While they cannot chase prey or flee danger, plants have evolved the ability to move when it matters most, proving that speed and stillness are not opposites, but strategies deployed at different moments. Plants can survive in boiling water, in the hot springs of Yellowstone and other geothermal areas, where water temperatures exceed 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Life seems impossible. Yet certain plants and algae thrive in these conditions. Thermophilic bacteria and algae form colorful mats around hot springs, creating the vibrant oranges, yellows, and greens that make these features so striking. Some mosses can survive temperatures that would cook most organisms, entering dormant states and reviving when conditions moderate. These extremophiles have evolved proteins and cell membranes that remain stable at high temperatures. They've adapted their photosynthetic machinery to function in heat that would destroy normal chlorophyll. These organisms, represent some of Earth's most ancient lineages, descendants of the first life that emerged in Earth's hot, volcanic youth. They show us that life's boundaries are far wider than we imagine, that even in conditions we consider uninhabitable, somewhere a plant has found a way to survive. Desert plants can go years without water. The desert may seem lifeless, but it's filled with master survivors. Cacti and succulents store water in their thick stems and leaves, rationing it carefully through years of drought. The creosote bush, common in American deserts, can survive years without rain, dropping its leaves and entering dormancy until moisture returns. Some desert plants exist almost entirely underground. Their roots, vast networks that can extend 80 feet in search of water, while only a small shrub appears above ground. The resurrection plant dries to a brown, dead-looking ball during drought, its cells protected by specialized sugars. When rain finally arrives, it unfurls and greens, within hours, returning to active life. Desert seeds can wait decades for the precise conditions needed for germination, refusing to sprout until rains are sufficient to support growth. This patience is wisdom. In environments where water is scarce, rushing to grow can mean death. Better to wait, dormant but alive, for the right moment. The tallest flowering plant grows over 300 feet tall. While coast redwoods hold the record for tallest trees, the tallest flowering plant is the mountain ash of Australia, Eucalyptus regnans. These magnificent trees can exceed 300 feet, with the tallest known specimen, named Centurion, standing 327 feet tall. Unlike the ancient redwoods, mountain ash are relatively short-lived, rarely exceeding 400 years. But their growth rate is phenomenal, rocketing upward in the wet, temperate forests of Tasmania and Victoria. Their straight trunks rise like pillars, crowned with aromatic leaves that provide habitat for koalas and possums. The bark sheds in long strips, and the wood is prized for construction. These forests, when left undisturbed, create canopies so high that light barely reaches the forest floor, supporting ecosystems found nowhere else on Earth. To stand beneath such a tree is to crane your neck until it aches, staring upward at a living structure that defies belief in its height and grace. Coconuts can float across oceans and still sprout. The coconut is nature's sailor. Its hard shell, buoyant fiber husk, and waterproof seal allow it to drift across thousands of miles of ocean and still germinate when it washes ashore. Coconuts have colonized tropical islands worldwide through this ocean dispersal. A coconut can float for up to 110 days, traveling over 3,000 miles on currents, and still have a viable seed inside. When it reaches land, the seed uses the coconut water and meat as nourishment, sending down roots before the stored food runs out. This remarkable adaptation allowed coconut palms to spread across the Pacific and Indian Oceans long before humans sailed these waters. Ancient Polynesian voyagers recognized the value of coconuts and carried them intentionally, but the trees were already there, planted by the ocean itself. The coconut represents ultimate plant patience and preparation, a seed ready for a journey of unknown length to an unknown destination, carrying everything it needs to start a new life. Some trees can clone themselves for thousands of years. Beyond Pando's connected root system, some trees reproduce by sending up suckers or dropping branches that root themselves. The Fortingal yew in Scotland is estimated to be between 2,000 and 5,000 years old, though its exact age is impossible to determine because the center has rotted away. It has survived by layering, its branches drooping to the ground, rooting, and becoming new trunks. These clones surround the original, maintaining a genetic line that may stretch back millennia. Willows and poplars readily clone themselves, with fragments of twig or root capable of growing into full trees. This vegetative reproduction allows a single individual's genetics to persist far longer than any single trunk could survive. Some plant lineages have reproduced this way for so long that they've lost the ability to produce viable seeds, relying entirely on cloning. They are, in a sense, immortal, the same individual existing in many bodies, spread across landscapes, surviving through millennia by refusing to put all their resources into one fragile trunk. Vines can strangle trees over decades. In tropical forests, woody vines called lianas compete with trees for light. They begin life on the forest floor, sending thin stems upward, searching for support. When they find a tree, they wrap around it and climb, using the tree's structure to reach the canopy without investing energy in a thick trunk of their own. Once in the light, the vine grows vigorously, often becoming thicker than the host tree. Some vines grow so heavy or wrap so tightly that they strangle their host, cutting off water and nutrient flow. The tree weakens and eventually dies, leaving the vine wrapped around a dead trunk or hanging in loops and tangles. Yet this relationship is not simply parasitic. Lianas provide connections between trees, creating highways through the canopy for animals. Their flowers and fruits feed pollinators and fruit eaters. Their stems provide water that animals can tap during droughts. The forest would be poorer without them, even as individual trees pay the price for hosting these ambitious climbers. The smell of pine forests comes from defensive chemicals. When you walk through a pine forest and breathe deeply of that clean, sharp scent, you're inhaling terpenes, defensive chemicals the trees produce to protect themselves. These compounds are toxic to many insects and inhibit the growth of competing plants. They also help seal wounds in bark and protect against fungal infections. The smell is strongest in warm weather when the compounds volatilize more readily. These same terpenes create the blue haze often seen over forested mountains, millions of tiny droplets of plant oils suspended in the air. In high concentrations, these compounds can actually be flammable, contributing to the intensity of forest fires. But they also have medicinal properties. Humans have used pine derivatives for thousands of years as antiseptics, anti-inflammatories, and expectorants. The scent we find refreshing and clean is the smell of chemical warfare in slow motion. Trees defending themselves with aromatic compounds that double as medicine for those who know how to use them. Some plants can accumulate toxic metals without dying. In soils contaminated with heavy metals like cadmium, lead, or arsenic, most plants die. But some species thrive, accumulating these toxins in their tissues at concentrations that would kill other organisms. These hyperaccumulators can store metals at levels hundreds or thousands of times higher than in the soil. Some ferns can accumulate arsenic to constitute 5% of their dry weight. Certain mustards store zinc, nickel, or cadmium in their leaves. Scientists are now using these plants for phytoremediation, planting them in contaminated areas to clean the soil. After growing for a season, the plants are harvested and disposed of safely, taking the pollution with them. Some researchers are even exploring phytomining, growing hyperaccumulators on mineral-rich soil, then harvesting and processing the plants to extract valuable metals. These plants show us that what's toxic to one organism may be merely inconvenient to another, and that nature has already solved problems we're only beginning to address. Mangrove forests protect coastlines from storms. Along tropical and subtropical coasts grow mangrove forests, strange trees that live with their roots in salt water. These forests provide critical ecosystem services. Their dense root systems trap sediment, building land over time. They filter water, removing pollutants before they reach the ocean. They provide nursery habitat for fish, shrimp, and crabs that spend their youth among the protective roots. But perhaps most importantly, they protect human communities from storms. Mangrove forests absorb wave energy, reducing the impact of storm surges and tsunamis on coastal communities. Studies after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami found that villages behind intact mangrove forests suffered far less damage than those where mangroves had been cleared. A healthy mangrove belt can reduce wave height by up to 66%. Despite this value, mangroves are being cleared at alarming rates for shrimp farming and coastal development. Protecting and restoring these forests is not sentimentality but survival. Recognition that these salt-tolerant trees provide services no human engineering can match. Some bamboo shoots are edible and emerge from the ground already several inches wide. When bamboo shoots emerge in spring, they're already several inches in diameter, looking like small, pointy mountains breaking through the earth. These shoots are edible, harvested extensively in Asian cuisines for their crisp texture and mild flavor. But harvesters must be quick. Within days, these shoots will be taller than a person. Within weeks, they'll be fully grown trees. The speed requires perfect timing. Too early, and the shoot hasn't emerged. Too late, and it's too woody to eat. The narrow harvest window makes fresh bamboo shoots a delicacy. Inside each shoot are segments separated by nodes, the same structure that will allow the mature bamboo to be strong yet flexible. These shoots represent extraordinary efficiency. Everything needed for a 100-foot tree is compressed into this package, requiring only water to unlock its potential. Its growth on fast forward, life in a hurry, visible change, happening faster than almost anywhere else in the plant kingdom. Willow bark contains the original aspirin. For thousands of years, humans chewed willow bark to relieve pain and reduce fever. The bark contains salicin, which the body converts to salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Native Americans all discovered willow's medicinal properties independently. In 1897, chemists finally synthesized acetyl salicylic acid, creating aspirin, one of the most widely used drugs in history. But the willow was there first, producing this compound as a defense against herbivores and pathogens. Many modern medicines originated in plants. Morphine from poppies, quinine from cinchona bark, digitalis from foxglove, Taxol from Pacific yew. Even today, researchers screen thousands of plant species for medicinal compounds, knowing that plants' chemical defenses often have pharmaceutical applications. The willow's gift to humanity is immeasurable. How many headaches has it cured? How many fevers has it reduced? How many heart attacks has aspirin prevented? All from a tree growing quietly beside streams, its bark containing molecules refined by millions of years of evolution. Trees can bend light to optimize photosynthesis. The leaves of most trees don't simply hang randomly. They're arranged in precise patterns that maximize light capture while minimizing shade on lower leaves. This arrangement, called phyllotaxis, follows mathematical patterns, often the Fibonacci sequence. Leaves spiral around the stem at angles that prevent overlap when viewed from above, creating the most efficient packing. Some trees adjust their leaf angles throughout the day, tracking the sun like slow-motion solar panels. Others have leaves at different angles on different branches, ensuring that light penetrating the upper canopy reaches lower levels. This optimization is so precise that forest canopies capture nearly 95% of available light, with only 5% reaching the forest floor. The trees aren't consciously arranging themselves, but are the product of millions of years of selection for efficiency. Every leaf position, every branch angle, every spiral pattern is the result of countless small improvements. Nature's calculus working out optimal solutions through trial and error across deep time. Saguaro cacti can weigh over a ton. The iconic saguaro cactus of the Sonoran Desert grows slowly, taking 75 years to develop its first arm. But over its 150 to 200-year lifespan, it becomes massive. A full-grown saguaro can reach 40 feet tall and weigh over 4,800 pounds, most of that weight being stored water. During the brief desert rains, the cactus's pleated skin expands, allowing it to absorb and store as much as 200 gallons of water. This reservoir sustains the plant through years of drought. The saguaro's arms create habitat for birds, particularly the Gila woodpecker and gilded flicker, which excavate nest holes in the soft flesh. When the birds abandon these holes, elf owls, purple martins, and other species move in. The cactus's spring blooms open at night, pollinated by bats and bees. Its fruits feed everything from birds to coyotes. A single saguaro is an apartment building, a water tower, a grocery store, and a symbol of the desert's ability to create abundance from scarcity. To see one is to see desert resilience standing 40 feet tall. Some plants produce natural antifreeze. In regions where winter temperatures plunge far below freezing, some plants survive by producing antifreeze compounds. These cryoprotectants, similar to the antifreeze in car radiators, lower the freezing point of water inside cells and protect cell membranes from ice crystal damage. Some plants can survive being frozen to -40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. The Arctic willow, which grows farther north than any other woody plant, produces antifreeze proteins that bind to ice crystals, preventing them from growing large enough to puncture cell walls. Some evergreens pump their cells full of sugars and proteins that act as antifreeze, while moving water out of cells into spaces where freezing won't cause damage. Certain frogs and insects also use plant-derived antifreeze compounds. When spring arrives, these plants reverse the process, diluting their antifreeze and resuming normal growth. They don't fight winter. They adapt to it, proving that survival isn't about strength, but about flexibility. The baobab tree can store 32,000 gallons of water. In the African savanna stands one of Earth's most distinctive trees, the baobab. With its enormous trunk and sparse branches, it looks upside down, as if its roots are reaching skyward. This strange shape serves a purpose. The massive trunk, which can reach 90 feet in circumference, is a water storage tank. The soft, fibrous wood acts like a sponge, absorbing and storing up to 32,000 gallons of water during the rainy season. This reserve sustains the tree through 8 months of drought. Elephants have learned this secret, sometimes ripping open baobab trunks to access the water inside. The tree can usually heal these wounds. It's water-filled wood, resistant to rot. Baobabs live for thousands of years. Some specimens are over 2,000 years old, having witnessed the entire span of human history in Africa. They provide food, water, shelter, and medicine to countless species, including humans. The baobab is not just a tree but a life support system, proof that in harsh environments, the biggest often survive the longest. Morning glories track time and bloom at specific hours. Morning glories are natural clocks. Each flower opens at dawn and closes by afternoon, living for a single day. But this isn't a response to light alone. The plants have internal circadian rhythms that tell them when to bloom. Even if kept in constant darkness, morning glories will continue opening and closing at roughly 24-hour intervals. This internal clock allows the plant to anticipate dawn, preparing its flowers to open, just as pollinators become active. maximizing the brief time the flower has to be pollinated. Other flowers have their own schedules. Evening primrose opens at dusk. Night-blooming cereus opens after midnight. 4 o'clocks, true to their name, open in late afternoon. In the 18th century, botanist Carl Linnaeus designed a flower clock, a garden planted with species that bloomed at different hours, allowing him to tell time by observing which flowers were open. Plants measure time as precisely as we do, though by different mechanisms, their lives governed by internal rhythms synchronized to the turning of the earth. Some plants can live for centuries without ever touching soil. In the cloud forests of Central and South America, thousands of plant species live their entire lives in the canopy, never touching the ground. These epiphytes grow on branches, their roots absorbing moisture from rain and humidity. Bromeliads form water-filled cups in their leaf rosettes, creating tiny ecosystems that support frogs, insects, and other organisms hundreds of feet above the forest floor. Orchids cling to bark with specialized roots that photosynthesize. Spanish moss drapes from branches, its gray tendrils having no roots at all, absorbing water directly through specialized scales on its leaves. These plants aren't parasites. They don't take nutrients from their host trees, only use them for support, but they add significantly to the forest's biodiversity. A single large tree can support 50 or more epiphyte species, each creating microhabitats, providing food, and adding to the forest's complexity. The canopy is a world unto itself, a sky garden that most people never see. Venus flytraps are native to only a small region of the Carolinas. Despite being famous worldwide, the Venus flytrap grows naturally in only a tiny area, within 75 miles of Wilmington, North Carolina. This small range makes it vulnerable. Habitat destruction and poaching have made it rare in the wild, though it's common in cultivation. The flytrap evolved in nutrient-poor, acidic wetlands, where catching insects provides essential nitrogen. Its spring-loaded traps trigger hairs that count touches, and ability to digest prey represent millions of years of adaptation to a specific environment. Outside this region, the precise combination of soil chemistry, moisture, and climate that the flytrap requires simply doesn't exist naturally. This reminds us that even the most remarkable adaptations are responses to specific conditions. The Venus flytrap isn't superior to other plants. It's specialized, traded away the ability to thrive in rich soil for the ability to survive in poor soil by supplementing its diet. In nature, there are no superorganisms, only different solutions to different problems. The largest flower in the world can be 3 feet wide. In the rainforests of Southeast Asia grows Rafflesia arnoldii, producer of the world's largest single flower. These blooms can reach 3 feet in diameter and weigh 15 pounds. Like the corpse flower, Rafflesia smells of rotting flesh, attracting carrion flies for pollination. But Rafflesia is even stranger than its smell suggests. It has no leaves, no stem, and no roots. It's a parasite that lives entirely inside the tissues of jungle vines, invisible until the flower bud emerges through the host's bark. The flower blooms for just a few days before rotting away, and months or years may pass before the same parasite flowers again. Finding one in bloom is remarkably lucky. The plant has no chlorophyll, cannot photosynthesize, and steals all its nutrients from its host. It represents an extreme of plant evolution, a species that has abandoned almost everything we associate with plants, retaining only the flower, the reproductive structure, because that alone is essential. Everything else could be discarded. Ancient forests store more carbon than any other land ecosystem. Old-growth forests are irreplaceable carbon sinks. The massive trees, thick layers of organic matter on the forest floor, and complex soil ecosystems store more carbon per acre than any other terrestrial ecosystem. When these forests are logged, centuries of stored carbon releases into the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. But beyond carbon storage, old forests provide ecosystem services that young forests cannot. Their complex structure creates microclimates and habitats found nowhere else. Their diverse plant species support more animal diversity. Their deep soils filter water and prevent erosion. Their interconnected root and fungal networks create resilience against drought and disease. A 300-year-old tree isn't just an old version of a 30-year-old tree. It's a different organism entirely, with different ecological roles and relationships. Protecting remaining old-growth forests is among the most important conservation actions we can take. Once cut, they cannot be replaced within human timescales. The forests we protect today are protecting us in return, storing carbon, filtering air and water, and maintaining climate stability. Banyan trees can cover acres with a single organism. The banyan tree grows in a way that defies normal tree definition. It begins life as an epiphyte, a seed dropped by a bird in a tree canopy. The seedling sends roots downward, sometimes 100 feet to the ground. Once these roots establish in soil, the banyan grows vigorously, sending down more and more aerial roots that thicken into trunk-like structures. Over time, the original host tree dies and rots away, leaving the banyan standing as a forest of pillars supporting a vast canopy. The Great Banyan in India covers 3.5 acres with over 3,000 aerial roots, though it's technically a single tree. Walking through such a banyan feels like walking through a forest, sunlight dappling through the canopy, pillars rising around you, but all of it is one organism. In South Asian and Pacific cultures, these trees are sacred, their shade used for markets and gatherings for centuries. The banyan blurs the line between tree and forest, individual and community, demonstrating that nature doesn't always fit into our categories. Some seeds need fire to germinate. In fire-adapted ecosystems, some plants have evolved seeds that won't germinate until exposed to fire. These seeds have thick coats, sealed with resins that require intense heat to crack open. The seeds can lie dormant for decades, waiting for fire to sweep through. After a fire, with competition reduced and nutrients from ash enriching the soil, these seeds germinate en masse, carpeting the burned area with new growth. Giant sequoias require fire for reproduction. Their cones stay closed for years, sometimes decades, until fire melts the resin seal. Lodgepole pines and many chaparral species have similar adaptations. Some seeds respond not to heat but to smoke, chemicals in smoke triggering germination. This fire dependence is so strong that these ecosystems decline without periodic fires. Fire suppression, while protecting human property, harms fire-dependent plants and leads to dangerous fuel accumulation. Understanding plants' relationship with fire has changed how we manage forests. Recognizing that fire is not destruction but renewal, part of the cycle these ecosystems have adapted to over millions of years. The Amazon produces its own rain. The Amazon rainforest is not just influenced by weather, it creates weather. Trees pull moisture from soil and release it through transpiration, essentially sweating water vapor into the air. A large tree can release hundreds of gallons of water per day. With billions of trees transpiring simultaneously, the Amazon pumps enormous amounts of moisture into the atmosphere. This moisture forms clouds and falls as rain, often hundreds of miles from where it evaporated. The moisture rises, falls, rises again, creating a cycle that moves water from the Atlantic coast deep into the continent's interior. Studies show that air masses that pass over extensive forest produce twice as much rain as those passing over cleared land. The Amazon rainforest creates the rain that sustains itself. When forests are cleared, regional rainfall decreases, creating a feedback loop that makes reforestation more difficult. The forest is not just responding to its environment, but actively creating it, engineering its own climate through the collective action of billions of trees. Pitcher plants create miniature ecosystems. Inside the water-filled chambers of pitcher plants lives a complex ecosystem. While the plant digests some prey that falls in, other organisms have adapted to live in this dangerous environment. Mosquito larvae of certain species can survive in the digestive fluid, eating smaller prey and growing to adulthood inside the pitcher. Spider species hunt around the rim, stealing prey before it falls in. Tree frogs use the pitchers as safe refuges from predators. Some species live nowhere else. Each pitcher is a tiny world with predators, prey, scavengers, and freeloaders all coexisting in a space no larger than a cup. The relationships are complex. The mosquito larvae may help the plant by breaking down large prey into smaller pieces more easily absorbed. The frogs leave nitrogen-rich droppings that fertilize the plant. These miniature ecosystems remind us that complexity emerges at every scale. Even in a cup-sized environment, nature creates food webs, competition, cooperation, and adaptation, life finding ways to exploit every available niche. Plants can communicate through fungal networks across species. The mycorrhizal networks connecting plant roots aren't just communication lines within a species. They cross species boundaries, linking trees of different types into a single network. Through these connections, resources can flow between species. A Douglas fir can share carbon with a paper birch. In experiments where one species is shaded and the other receives full sun, carbon flows to the Fida fir's shaded plant, suggesting a form of cooperation, or at least resource sharing that benefits the forest as a whole. These networks also carry more than nutrients. They transmit chemical signals, warnings of pests or disease that can prepare multiple species simultaneously. The fungal networks function like a forest-wide internet, allowing individual plants to send and receive information to support each other and to create resilient communities where the forest's health matters more than any individual's success. This challenges our understanding of competition. While plants certainly compete, they also cooperate in ways we're only beginning to document. The forest is not a battlefield, but a community. Some deserts bloom once a decade. In deserts, rainfall is rare and unpredictable. Seeds can wait years for conditions right for germination. But when rare, heavy rains finally arrive, something magical happens. Millions of seeds germinate simultaneously, and within days, the barren, desert floor erupts in a carpet of color. These superblooms occur roughly once a decade in places like California's Mojave Desert and the Atacama Desert in Chile. The timing must be perfect. Enough rain must fall at the right time of year, with the right temperature, and then more rain must follow to support growth. When all conditions align, deserts that look lifeless become gardens, their hidden potential suddenly visible. The flowers bloom quickly, setting seed within weeks before the heat returns. Visitors travel from around the world to witness these events, standing in landscapes transformed from brown to purple, orange, yellow, and white as far as the eye can see. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the bloom ends, seeds fall, and the desert returns to waiting, patient as always. Some plants grow only on specific soils. Certain plants are so specialized They grow only where specific minerals are present. Serpentine soils, derived from ultramafic rocks, contain high levels of magnesium and nickel and low levels of calcium. Most plants cannot tolerate these conditions, but serpentine endemic species thrive there exclusively. In California, dozens of plant species grow nowhere but serpentine outcrops. These areas have unique flora, often with high rates of endemism, plants found nowhere else on Earth. Similarly, some plants are calcareous specialists, requiring limestone-rich soils. Others grow only on gypsum or only on mine tailings with specific metal content. These soil specialists are excellent indicators for geologists and prospectors. Their presence reveals underlying geology, but they're also conservation concerns. Their specialized requirements mean they have limited ranges and cannot adapt if their habitat is destroyed. They remind us that plants and soil are inseparable, that the invisible world beneath our feet determines what can grow above it. Trees can send resources to competitors. In experiments where trees are connected by mycorrhizal networks, researchers have found something unexpected. Not only do trees share with their offspring and cooperate with kin, but they sometimes share resources with unrelated individuals, even different species that compete for the same resources. When one tree is dying, it often sends its remaining resources to neighbors through fungal networks, essentially bequeathing its stored carbon to survivors. This behavior seems altruistic, or at least cooperative on a level that defies simple competition models. One hypothesis is that trees support their neighbors because healthy neighbors mean a healthy forest, and a healthy forest provides benefits to all individuals. Stable climate, protection from wind, maintained fungal networks, and forest predator populations that keep herbivores in check. By helping competitors survive, trees may be investing in the system that supports them. It's cooperation arising from interconnection, a recognition encoded in chemistry and evolution that individual success depends on collective success. The root system of a single grass plant can extend hundreds of miles. A single perennial grass plant may seem small, but its root system is enormous. Prairie grasses can have roots extending 10 to 15 feet deep, with lateral roots spreading in all directions. If you could trace every root fiber and root hair of a single plant and lay them end to end, they would stretch hundreds of miles. This vast underground network allows the plant to access water deep in the soil, to find nutrients in a wide area, and to anchor firmly against prairie winds. These deep roots are why prairie soils are so rich. When roots die and decompose, they add organic matter deep in the soil profile, creating the fertile topsoil that made prairies prime agricultural land. The root mass of a prairie typically exceeds the above-ground mass by 3 or 4 times. What we see is just a fraction of the plant. The real work, the real structure, is hidden below, a vast, underground architecture that has sustained grasslands for millions of years. Some plants have evolved to be eaten. Not all plant defenses involve toxins or spines. Some plants have evolved to encourage certain animals to eat them, at least specific parts. Fruits are the obvious example. Plants package their seeds in nutritious, often delicious fruits, specifically so animals will eat them and disperse the seeds. The fruit is payment for seed dispersal services, but the strategy goes deeper. Some plants benefit from herbivores eating their leaves, within limits. Moderate grazing can stimulate growth, removing old leaves and prompting the plant to produce new, more efficient foliage. Some grasses grow from the base rather than the tip, allowing grazing animals to eat the grass without destroying the growth point. These grasses co-evolved with herds of bison, zebra, or wildebeest, adapted to regular grazing and even dependent on it. Without grazers, these grasses can be outcompeted by plants that invest more in height and less in regrowth. The relationship between grazers and grasses is not predation, but partnership, each shaping the other over millions of years. The heaviest organism on Earth is a tree. While Pando is often cited as the world's largest organism by area, another contender exists for sheer mass. Giant sequoias, while not covering huge areas, contain extraordinary amounts of wood. The General Sherman tree, a giant sequoia in California, is estimated to weigh 2.7 million pounds, over 1,200 tons. Its trunk alone contains enough wood to build 40 average houses. If General Sherman were hollow, you could fit the entire house inside its trunk with room to spare. Despite this mass, the tree continues adding about 1 ton of wood each year, the equivalent of adding another full-grown tree annually. This growth rate makes sequoias among the fastest-growing plants by mass, even though they grow slowly by height. The tree is not just big, but still actively growing, still adding cells, still drawing nutrients from soil through roots and sunlight through leaves. Processes that work the same in a sequoia as in a daisy, but scaled to produce a living structure weighing more than the largest animals that ever lived. Plants shaped human civilization. Human history is plant history. The agricultural revolution that allowed civilization to develop was possible only because our ancestors domesticated plants. Wheat, rice, corn, and other grains transformed humans from wanderers to settlers. Cities arose where food could be stored. Writing developed to track harvests and trade. Empires rose and fell based on agricultural success. Cotton and flax clothed us. Timber built our homes and ships. Rubber made modern transportation possible. Coffee and tea drove trade routes and colonization. The potato allowed European population expansion. Sugar and spices motivated exploration and conquest. Wars have been fought over plants. Economies have collapsed when crops failed. Every major historical event has plants at its roots, sometimes literally. Even now, in our technological age, we depend on plants as completely as our ancestors did. We've simply become better at forgetting that every breath, every meal, every cotton shirt, every wooden table, every sheet of paper connects us to the plant kingdom. Civilization is built on a foundation of photosynthesis. Some plants can recognize the sound of flowing water. Recent research suggests plant roots can sense vibrations from flowing water and grow toward the sound. In experiments, plants exposed to recordings of water flowing through pipes grew their roots toward the sound, even when no moisture gradient existed. This suggests plants can use acoustic information to find water sources. Other studies indicate plants respond to vibrations from insect chewing, increasing defensive chemical production when exposed to the sound of caterpillars eating leaves. But when exposed to wind vibrations or other noises, no such response occurs, suggesting plants can distinguish between different types of vibration. How they accomplish this without ears or a nervous system remains mysterious. The implications are profound. Plants may inhabit a sensory world we can barely imagine, perceiving stimuli we've never considered, making decisions based on information we didn't know they could access. Every new study reveals capabilities we didn't expect, senses we didn't know existed, awareness we didn't think possible in organisms without brains. Maple syrup is concentrated tree blood. When you pour maple syrup on pancakes, you're eating concentrated tree sap, essentially tree blood. In late winter, maple trees begin moving stored starches from their roots up to their branches, preparing for spring growth. The sap is mostly water, with about 2% sugar. Maple trees, unlike most trees, have root pressure that pushes sap upward even before leaves emerge. By drilling a small hole in the sucker trunk, This sap drips out slowly. It takes about 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. The sap is boiled for hours, water evaporating, sugars concentrating and caramelizing, creating the rich flavor we love. Native Americans discovered this process thousands of years ago, teaching it to European settlers. The tree isn't harmed by proper tapping and will seal the hole after the season. Some maple trees have been tapped for over 150 years. This sweet partnership between humans and trees, tapping into the tree's yearly preparation for spring, has sustained communities for centuries and reminds us that plants provide not just beauty and oxygen, but sweetness itself. Some plants can live for over a year without photosynthesizing. When a seed germinates, it initially lives entirely on stored energy, but eventually must begin photosynthesis or starve. However, some plants extend this period remarkably. Certain orchid seeds can remain non-photosynthetic for years, living as saprophytes, fed by fungi that provide them with nutrients from decomposing matter. The seeds and young seedlings have no chlorophyll and exist in complete darkness beneath the forest floor. Some orchids never develop the ability to photosynthesize at all, remaining dependent on their fungal partners throughout their lives. Other plants that typically photosynthesize can survive extended periods in darkness by entering dormancy and living off stored reserves. Bulbs like tulips and daffodils can last a full year or more in a dark closet, their stored starches and sugars sustaining them until replanted. This flexibility demonstrates that photosynthesis, while typical for plants, isn't absolutely necessary for survival if alternative energy sources exist. The smallest flowering plant is smaller than a pinhead. While giant sequoias and redwoods stretch hundreds of feet tall, the world's smallest flowering plants are barely visible. Wolffia, also called watermeal, consists of tiny oval specks that float on still water. The entire plant is typically less than 1 millimeter long, smaller than a pinhead. Despite their size, they're complete flowering plants, with roots, stems, leaves, all fused into one tiny structure, and flowers, though the flowers are microscopic and rarely seen. These tiny plants reproduce mostly through budding, growing small daughter plants that break off and float away. They grow in dense mats that can cover ponds, looking like green powder on the water's surface. In Southeast Asia, Wolffia is harvested and eaten, considered nutritious despite, or perhaps because of, its size. The plants contain high levels of protein and minerals. That something so small can be a complete plant, with all the structures and functions of its giant relatives, reminds us that size is merely one variable in the endless diversity of plant life. Cork comes from bark that trees shed naturally. The cork in wine bottles, bulletin boards, and flooring comes from the bark of cork oak trees native to Mediterranean regions. These remarkable trees develop thick, spongy bark that can be harvested without killing the tree. Every 9 to 12 years, skilled workers carefully strip the outer bark, leaving the living inner layers intact. The tree heals, growing new cork bark that can be harvested again. A single tree can be harvested 15 to 20 times over its lifetime of 200 years. Cork harvesting is sustainable, requiring no tree death and actually promoting forest health. Cork forests support diverse ecosystems, home to endangered species like the Iberian lynx and Barbary deer. The material itself is remarkable: lightweight, waterproof, fire-resistant, and naturally antimicrobial. Its unique cellular structure makes it compressible and elastic, perfect for bottle stoppers. This ancient practice demonstrates sustainable harvest done right, taking from trees without taking their lives, benefiting both humans and ecosystems for centuries. Plants invented, Wood, 400 million years ago. Before plants developed wood, they were small, unable to grow tall. Wood, essentially specialized cells with thick walls of lignin and cellulose, provided the structural support needed for trees to evolve. The first woody plants appeared roughly 400 million years ago, and their development changed Earth forever. As plants grew taller, they shaded competitors, driving an evolutionary arms race toward height. Forests appeared, altering climate, increasing oxygen production, and creating new habitats. When these early woody plants died, nothing existed that could decompose lignin efficiently. Their bodies piled up, eventually becoming coal deposits we mine today. Much of our coal comes from this period, the Carboniferous, named for these vast carbon deposits. The invention of wood enabled almost everything we associate with plants today: forests, shade, tree-dwelling animals, woodpeckers, tree houses, lumber, paper, and the landscape itself as we know it, all because some plants evolved cells with extra thick walls that could support weight. This innovation, refined over millions of years, literally built the framework of terrestrial ecosystems. Some plants can predict seasons. Plants track time through multiple mechanisms. They sense day length through photoreceptors that measure the ratio of light to dark hours. As days lengthen in spring, these sensors trigger flowering in some species. As days shorten in fall, they trigger leaf drop in deciduous trees. But plants also count cold days. Many plants require vernalization, a period of cold temperatures before they'll flower. This prevents them from flowering during a warm spell in winter, only to have their flowers killed by subsequent frost. The plant essentially requires proof that winter has occurred before it commits to spring growth. Other plants measure cumulative heat, tracking growing degree days, the total accumulated warmth above a threshold temperature. When the cumulative total reaches a specific number, flowers emerge or fruits ripen. Through these mechanisms, plants accurately predict seasons, timing their activities to match environmental conditions, minimizing risk and maximizing success. They cannot think or plan, yet they behave as though they're following sophisticated strategies encoded in their genes through millions of years of selection. The world's loneliest plant sits in a greenhouse. In 1895, a cycad called Encephalatos woodii was discovered in South Africa. Only a single male plant was found. No female has ever been discovered. Cuttings were taken, and the original plant was eventually removed to a botanical garden. Today, several plants exist, but all are clones of that single male. This species cannot reproduce sexually. No female exists to pollinate. Encephalatos woodii is extinct in the wild and functionally extinct everywhere, existing only as a collection of genetic copies of one individual. The species cannot evolve, cannot adapt, cannot create the genetic diversity that ensures survival. It simply persists, maintained by humans who keep cloning it, waiting for a female that may not exist. Some call it the loneliest organism on Earth, a male plant that will never find a mate. Its existence poses philosophical questions. Is preservation as clones meaningful if sexual reproduction is impossible? Is a species that exists only as copies in botanical gardens truly alive or merely maintained as a living museum piece? Plants can change sex. Many plants produce separate male and female flowers, but they're typically on the same individual. However, some species are dioecious, producing male flowers on some plants and female flowers on others, like holly or kiwi. More remarkably, some plants can change sex. Certain jack-in-the-pulpit plants are male when small and young, switching to female as they mature and can afford the higher energy cost of producing seeds. Some may switch back to male if they have a bad year and cannot afford seed production. Sequential hermaphroditism in plants is common, allowing individuals to maximize reproductive success based on their current resources. Some plants change sex in response to environmental conditions. Others change based on the sex ratio in their population, becoming whatever sex is rarer and therefore more valuable for reproduction. This flexibility demonstrates that sex in plants is often not fixed but strategic, a decision made based on circumstances rather than a fundamental characteristic of the individual. Vanilla orchids must be hand-pollinated for commercial production. Vanilla, the second most expensive spice after saffron, comes from orchids native to Mexico. In their native range, they're pollinated by specific species of bees. But when vanilla was introduced to other tropical regions for cultivation, the pollinators didn't come along. The flowers open for only one day and must be pollinated during a brief window of hours. Initially, vanilla wouldn't produce pods outside Mexico. Then, in 1841, a 12-year-old enslaved boy named Edmund Albius on Reunion Island invented a method to hand-pollinate the flowers using a small stick. His technique is still used today. Every vanilla bean requires individual hand pollination, done flower by flower during the brief time each is receptive. This labor-intensive process makes vanilla expensive and means that the global vanilla industry depends on a technique invented by a child who received no compensation or recognition during his lifetime. It's a reminder that agricultural knowledge often comes from unexpected sources, and that the price of spices reflects not just scarcity, but the human labor required to produce them. Some trees are male, some are female, and they can only reproduce together. While most trees have flowers containing both male and female parts, or separate male and female flowers on the same tree, some species are strictly divided. Ginkgo trees are either male or female. Only the female trees produce the distinctive fan-shaped seeds, though they're accompanied by a smell so foul that many cities plant only male ginkgos to avoid the stench of rotting butter-scented seeds littering sidewalks. Ash trees, willows, and poplars are also dioecious. This means for a fruit or seed to form, you need both male and female trees in proximity, with pollinators to transfer pollen between them. Some rare tree species have so few individuals remaining that males and females may be separated by miles, making natural reproduction difficult or impossible. Conservation efforts must ensure both sexes are preserved and within pollination range. The separation of sexes in plants encourages genetic diversity, preventing self-fertilization, but requires a population large enough that males and females reliably find each other. Coffee beans are actually seeds. When you brew coffee, you're making a drink from ground seeds. What we call coffee beans are the seeds of the coffee cherry, a fruit produced by coffee plants. Each cherry typically contains 2 seeds, flat sides facing each other. After harvest, the fruit flesh is removed through various processing methods, and the seeds are dried, becoming the green coffee beans that are then roasted. The coffee plant evolved this fruit to attract animals that would eat the cherries and disperse the seeds. In some regions, civets eat coffee cherries, and the partially digested seeds are collected from their droppings, processed into the expensive Kopi Luwak coffee. The plants grow as shrubs in tropical highlands, thriving in the shade of taller trees. Coffee is one of the world's most valuable traded commodities. Entire economies dependent on this plant's seeds. When you sip your morning coffee, you're participating in a relationship between humans and plants that has shaped global trade, culture, and daily rituals for centuries. Plants produce the oxygen in every breath you'll take today. It's worth returning to this simple fact because it's so easy to forget. Every oxygen molecule you breathe was created by a plant or photosynthetic bacteria. There is no other natural source. Your lungs, your blood, your brain depend absolutely on plants continuously producing oxygen. Estimates suggest a mature tree produces enough oxygen for 2 people annually. The Amazon rainforest, the ocean's phytoplankton, the grass in your yard, the houseplant on your windowsill, all contribute to the air you breathe. This isn't historical. It's happening right now. At this moment, billions of chloroplasts in billions of cells in billions of leaves are splitting water molecules, releasing oxygen as a byproduct of capturing light energy. This process has operated continuously for over 2 billion years, maintaining an atmosphere that supports complex life. If photosynthesis stopped, oxygen levels would begin falling, and within generations, most complex life would suffocate. We exist in a bubble of oxygen maintained entirely by the green world, a gift renewed with every sunrise. Some plants can count days and only flower after specific numbers. Beyond measuring day length, some plants count days. They track not just hours of light, but the number of days that have passed. Rice plants, for example, count days after germination, flowering only after a specific number of days regardless of day length, though day length can modify the count. This mechanism ensures plants flower at developmentally appropriate times. A plant needs to reach certain size and maturity before flowering, and counting days ensures it waits long enough. Some plants combine multiple timing mechanisms, requiring both a certain number of days and specific day lengths, integrating multiple signals to flower at the optimal moment. This sophisticated timekeeping, accomplished without a brain or clock, demonstrates that plants process environmental information in complex ways. They're not reacting simply to immediate conditions, but integrating information over time, making decisions based on accumulated data, behaving in ways that suggest calculation, even though the mechanisms are chemical rather than cognitive. Poison ivy can cause reactions without touching it. Poison ivy produces urushiol, an oil that causes allergic reactions in about 85% of people. What's remarkable is you don't need to touch the plant directly. The oil can remain active on clothing, tools, or pet fur for years. If you touch something that touched poison ivy months ago, you can still get the rash. Even more disturbing, burning poison ivy releases urushiol particles into smoke. Inhaling this smoke can cause severe reactions in lungs and airways, potentially fatal. The plant evolved this chemical defense against herbivores, though it works far better on primates than on many animals. Deer and other herbivores eat poison ivy with no ill effects. The oil is colorless and odorless, giving no warning. The only defense is learning to identify the plant and avoiding it completely. The potency and persistence of urushiol make poison ivy one of the most successful plants at defending itself from human interference. We fear it, avoid it, and teach our children to recognize and respect it, essentially giving the plant exactly what it evolved the chemical to achieve. Ancient peoples created new species through selective breeding. When you look at a head of broccoli, cabbage, kale, cauliflower, or Brussels sprouts, you're seeing different cultivars of the same species, Brassica, Oleracea. All were bred from a single wild ancestor that looked nothing like any of them. Over generations, farmers selected plants with specific traits. Large leaves became kale, large flower buds became broccoli and cauliflower, compact leaf clusters became cabbage, enlarged lateral buds became Brussels sprouts. This happened before anyone understood genetics or evolution. Ancient farmers simply saved seeds from plants with desirable traits, and over time, created forms so different they're barely recognizable as relatives. The same process gave us modern corn from teosinte, tomatoes from small bitter fruits, and wheat from wild grasses. Humans have been genetically modifying plants for 10,000 years through selective breeding. Modern genetic engineering is simply a more direct method of doing what we've always done, reshaping plants to better serve human needs. Every farm, every garden, every grocery store is filled with plants that are products of this ancient partnership. Some trees drop all their leaves in a single day. Most deciduous trees lose leaves gradually over weeks, a slow drift of autumn color. But some species drop their leaves suddenly, all at once. After the first hard frost, a sugar, maple, or ash tree might drop every leaf within 24 hours, standing bare by the next morning, surrounded by a carpet of color. This synchronous leaf drop is triggered by the formation of an abscission layer at the base of each leaf stem. As days shorten and temperatures drop, cells in this layer weaken, forming a clean breakpoint. When frost finally arrives, the sudden temperature shock triggers all abscission layers simultaneously, and every leaf releases at once. For the tree, this rapid drop is efficient, eliminating all leaves before winter winds can tear branches. For observers, it's dramatic, a tree clothed in gold one evening standing naked by morning. The ground beneath transforms overnight, sometimes covered so thickly with leaves that the grass disappears entirely beneath the sudden blanket of autumn. Mushrooms and plants speak the same chemical language. The mycorrhizal networks connecting plants and fungi are communication channels. But what's remarkable is that fungi and plants, separated by hundreds of millions of years of evolution, still use many of the same signaling molecules. Both produce and respond to similar hormones and chemical signals. When plants and fungi form partnerships, they recognize each other through chemical conversations, each releasing compounds the other can detect. The plant signals it's open to partnership, and specific fungi respond. The relationship is negotiated chemically, with both parties exchanging signals before committing to the connection. Once established, they continue communicating, the plant signaling when it needs nutrients, the fungus signaling when it needs more carbon. This molecular dialogue happens constantly beneath our feet in every forest, every garden, every patch of natural ground. Two kingdoms of life, as different from each other as either is from animals. Maintaining relationships through a shared vocabulary evolved before either existed in its current form. The last universal common ancestor likely used photosynthesis. Life's family tree shows that photosynthesis evolved very early, possibly in the last universal common ancestor, the organism from which all current life descended. This means the ability to capture light energy and convert it to chemical energy is one of life's most ancient skills, fundamental to almost everything that followed. The oxygen-producing photosynthesis used by plants evolved later in cyanobacteria, roughly 2.5 billion years ago. When plants evolved, they didn't invent photosynthesis, but recruited it, incorporating cyanobacteria into their cells as chloroplasts. Those ancient bacteria still live inside every green cell, now so integrated they can't survive independently. Their DNA has mostly migrated to the plant cell nucleus, but they retain some genes and remain distinct structures. Every time a plant photosynthesizes, ancient bacteria inside its cells are performing the same task they evolved billions of years ago. Photosynthesis is not just old but foundational, perhaps the invention that made complex life possible, the process that created an oxygen atmosphere, and continues maintaining it today. Some deserts haven't seen rain in recorded history. The Atacama Desert in Chile is the driest non-polar place on Earth. Some weather stations there have never recorded rainfall. Some regions may not have seen rain for 400 years or more. Yet even here, plants survive. They collect water from fog that rolls in from the Pacific, condensing moisture from the air onto their leaves. Tillandsia, a bromeliad, grows without roots, clinging to rocks and absorbing fog through specialized leaf scales. Cacti and other succulents appear in areas where underground aquifers allow root access to deep water. Lichens and cyanobacteria crust the soil, appearing dead most of the time but reviving with the slightest moisture. The Atacama demonstrates life's absolute limit. Below the rainfall levels found here, nothing can survive. Yet even at this extreme, plants cling to existence, making use of fog, dew, humidity, or underground water. They remind us that life is tenacious, that given even the slightest opening, plants will find a way to grow, that the boundary between possible and impossible is far beyond what we might expect. Ancient forests once covered most of Earth's land. 10,000 years ago, before humans began large-scale agriculture, forests covered roughly 6 billion hectares of Earth's land surface. Today, less than 4 billion hectares remain. We've removed about 1/3 of the world's forests, primarily for agriculture and settlement. The pace has accelerated. Half of the forest loss has occurred in the last century. These forests weren't empty wilderness, but ecosystems, supporting millions of species, storing carbon, regulating climate, and filtering water. Ancient forests that took thousands of years to develop have been cleared in decades. The loss is not just trees, but entire ecosystems, soil communities, fungal networks, and countless species found nowhere else. Some cleared areas regenerate as secondary forest, but these lack the complexity, diversity, and carbon storage of old growth. As forests disappear, we lose not just beauty or resources, but climate stability. Forests cool the planet, produce rain, and store carbon. Their loss accelerates climate change, which further stresses remaining forests, creating feedback loops. Protecting and restoring forests is among the most important work we can do, not for nature's sake alone, but for our own survival. Plants sleep at night. Many plants exhibit sleep movements, folding their leaves at night and opening them with dawn. Prayer plants dramatically fold their leaves upward at dusk, as though praying. Mimosa trees fold their compound leaves into compact bundles. Clover closes its 3-part leaves. This nyctinosty, or sleep movement, is controlled by changes in turgor pressure in cells at the base of leaves. As light fades, these cells change shape, folding the leaves. The function isn't entirely clear, but theories suggest it reduces water loss, minimizes frost damage by reducing surface area, or prevents moonlight from interfering with photoperiod measurements. Some flowers close at night to protect pollen and internal structures from dew and nocturnal visitors. Time-lapse photography of plants through a day reveals constant motion. Leaves tracking the sun, flowers opening and closing, growing and shifting. Plants aren't still but dynamic, moving through daily cycles as regular as our own sleep. To watch a plant over 24 hours is to see a life as rhythmic and regular as any animal's, governed by the same planetary clock that governs us all. The world's most expensive fungus depends on specific trees. Truffles, the expensive fungi prized by chefs, grow underground in partnership with specific trees. They form ectomycorrhizal relationships, their fungal threads wrapping around tree roots. The fungus provides nutrients and water to the tree, and the tree provides sugars to the fungus. The truffle itself is the fungal fruiting body, produced underground where it releases aromatic compounds that attract animals. These animals dig up and eat the truffles, dispersing spores through their droppings. Different truffle species partner with different trees. White truffles prefer oaks, hazels, and poplars. Black Perigord truffles associate with oaks and hazelnuts. Attempts to cultivate truffles involve planting these specific trees in appropriate soils, inoculating roots with truffle spores, then waiting years for truffles to form. Success is not guaranteed. The specific soil chemistry, climate, and even surrounding vegetation all matter. Truffles command prices of thousands of dollars per pound because they cannot be mass-produced, depending on complex relationships with trees and soils that are difficult to replicate. They're products not just of fungi, but of entire ecosystems. Plants remember being touched. Studies show that plants have memory of physical touch that can last for days. When Arabidopsis plants are touched or exposed to wind, they activate hundreds of genes, many related to defense and stress response. If touched repeatedly, they become habituated, their response diminishing over time, demonstrating learning. More remarkably, if then left alone for days, their initial response to renewed touching is different, stronger, or weaker, depending on previous experience, showing they retain memory of the earlier treatment. Some plants touched frequently grow shorter and stockier, adapting their body form to mechanical stress. How plants store these memories without nervous systems remains mysterious, possibly involving epigenetic changes, proteins that persist in cells, or electrical signals. But the reality is clear. Plants remember experiences, learn from them, and adjust future behavior accordingly. To brush against a plant is to leave an impression, a memory, however brief or simple. The plant knows it was touched and responds accordingly, drawing on experience that shapes its future. And so, dear listener, our journey through the green world comes to a close. From the smallest watermeal to the tallest redwood, from desert survivors to rainforest giants, from the depths of soil to the heights of canopies, we have wandered together through a tapestry of life that covers our planet in green. We have glimpsed the patience of bristlecone pines that outlive civilizations, felt the speed of bamboo that grows as you watch, and marveled at the quiet sophistication of plants that count, remember, and communicate without brains or voice. The green world reminds us that complexity doesn't require consciousness, that awareness takes many forms, that intelligence can be chemical, slow, and silent, yet still profound. Plants show us that success isn't about speed or strength, but adaptation and persistence. They've survived 5 mass extinctions, colonized every habitat from tundra to desert, and created the atmosphere that allows us to exist. Every fruit we eat, every breath we take, every flower we admire is a connection to this ancient kingdom. As you lie here, letting your breath fall into an easy rhythm, imagine yourself in a quiet forest. Picture the hush of wind through leaves, the scent of pine and earth, the dappled sunlight filtering through branches overhead. See the patient trees standing watch, their roots intertwined beneath the soil, connected and communicating. Feel the soft moss underfoot, the cool shade, the gentle presence of countless plants, each one a tiny engine of life, breathing out the oxygen you breathe in, all of it flowing into stillness, into memory, into dreams. The green world has sustained life on Earth for billions of years, and it sustains you now. Its story is not finished, and in caring for plants, neither is ours. Just as night gives way to dawn, every seed holds the promise of growth. If you happen to still be awake, you can go ahead and watch the next video when you are ready. But if your eyes are growing heavy, let the quiet of the green world hold you and carry you softly into rest. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and drift into sleep, into stillness, into the vast and timeless cycle where all life is connected. Good night.